Happy Day of Atonement. Happy Yom Kippur to all Jews today. I want to go ahead and get started where I left off. It's getting closer. And the point of this video today is all of you who are Jews, all of you who are Zionists and not Jews, all of you who are looking for the Moshiach, I'm telling you, today is a day of comfort, and the truth should bring you joy. The truth of the words of the prophet shall stand, and the lies that have been preached against the Jews shall fall. Today, these days, we are witnessing the fall of Babylon. We are witnessing the fall of Western civilization. The destruction of Western civilization as was told by the prophets of Jehovah. The very prophets that Christians claim, as they say, the words of the prophets don't matter anymore. Happy are you Jews, because when the call to come home occurs, when the two men who come with the power of Moshe and Eliah come to call you back home, you are going to go. And I'll go with you. So when you hear and read these publications, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. This is going to be your time to shine. Your enemies have had over 2,000 years to do their thing on the earth. But now it's your turn. So in the Daily Mail, Putin deposed, Russia broken up, and NATO in a face-off with China. That's what the folks in Washington and in Britain think? Really? I'm going to show you just one reason why that's not going to work. Of course, the overall reason is because Jehovah's will be done and no one else's. As Ukraine sees a path toward victory and a desperate Vladimir Putin hits the panic button, expert argues this is how the war could end. The expert is wrong. So, talking points here are Putin has bullet points. Putin has spent the last week ramping up his war in Ukraine from 300,000 conscripts to nuclear threats. But his bluster is aimed at hiding the fact that Russia is losing the war as Ukraine recaptures territory. Seva Milisoy of Atlantic Council think tank spoke to Mail Online about what Russian defeat could look like. Putin would not survive the defeat, he argues, while Russia itself could break up, leaving the West competing with China over the spoils and NATO in a face-off with Beijing. My, oh my, oh my. How they have not read history. And you read this right here. Here's another headline. NATO warns Putin may test a nuke on Ukraine's borders. I'll get to an article, a couple of articles to that effect. Maybe I'll pull this one up and put it in a new link or a new tab. All right, so you're on war news again. U.S. shock statement activates Russian perimeter plan. And those of you who don't know what the Russian perimeter plan is, you might want to go and do a little research. It is a when everything goes wrong, when all else fails, somebody pushes a button. It can be Vladimir Putin or it could be a mere soldier. And the perimeter plan unleashes thousands of nuclear weapons against U.S. and the West. A U.S. declaration to trigger Article 5 of NATO and destroy Russian troops who will use nuclear weapons tactically in Ukraine was enough to further escalate the situation. For the first time, Moscow talked about activating the perimeter plan, a plan of total nuclear destruction. All right? I'm not going to read the whole thing. Don't need to. Now, here's another article on MSN. This is not The Onion. This is not InfoWars. It's not the Babylon Bee. It's MSN. I'm not saying that MSN is a reliable source for information. It is not. But I'm just saying, to most people it is. Rumors have spread through Russia that Vladimir Putin will soon make key decisions about launching a tactical nuclear strike from a secret bunker. And as other articles point out, it would be a bunker in Siberia. Kremlin leader has reportedly warned his closest family, including gymnast partner Alina Kabaeva, of the possibility of rapid evacuation to the mysterious location. Putin, who will be 70 on Friday, believes the bunker will be safe from Western attack. Oh, it might very well be. What he doesn't realize is somebody else knows where he lives and where he hides. Top officials from his security team could move to the bunker with him, according to the General SVR channel. Since the beginning of the war, the anti-Kremlin outlet, which claims inside knowledge of Putin's circle, has fueled rumors he is suffering acute health problems. Well, it is obvious that he is. Among its latest extraordinary claims is that he has been taking advice from shamans, as he contemplates launching nuclear missiles. It comes after Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov urged Putin to deploy low-yield nukes. And as I have pointed out, these low-yield nukes will break the fourth wall, which has not been broken since 1945. And once that happens, you can pretty much guarantee all hell to break loose. The Russian president has previously threatened to use all means at our disposal if his country is threatened. Now, yes, not him per se, but this whole idea in that previous article that somehow that China is just going to stand by or help Russia. Russia is not going to allow itself to be, how do I put this, in a prone position. Because China, one reason is China is not their friend at all. China has been looking to take Russian territory for quite some time. In fact, I believe it was 1969, the article says, that Russia, or I should say the USSR, almost nuked China. I bet you didn't read about that in your history books, did you? Well, let's go to the article. Right here on the national interest. No, this is not some far out, off the wall article from a dubious source. No. And I find it amazing that the folks in the West at a think tank actually would believe that Vladimir Putin won't launch nukes to stop the bleeding in this war with Ukraine. Billions almost died. In 1969, Russia and China almost went to nuclear war. And there it is, folks. By Robert Farley. Key point, Russia would have won, but at a cost. Americans tend to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis as the most dangerous moment in the Cold War brinksmanship. But they don't remember this, because the schools didn't teach them about this. Despite some tense moments, Washington and Moscow resolved that crisis with only the death of U.S. Air Force pilot Major Rudolph Anderson Jr., and I wonder what that was all about. 7 years later, in March 1969, a contingent of People's Liberation Army soldiers raided a Soviet border outpost in Zhenbao Island, killing dozens and injuring scores. The incident brought Russia and China to the brink of war, a conflict that might have led to the use of nuclear weapons, but after 2 weeks of clashes, the conflict trailed off. What if the brief 1969 conflict between China and the Soviet Union had escalated? You think that Russia is not worried about a knife in their back? The incident on Zhenbao Island, where the initial ambush and bulk of the fighting occurred, represented the nadir of Soviet-Chinese relations. Just 10 years earlier, Beijing and Moscow had stood hand in hand as bulwarks of the communist world. Struggles over ideology, leadership, resources, however, resulted in a sharp split between the Allies that had global repercussions. The split exacerbated territorial disputes that had existed since the Tsarist and imperial times. The long, poorly demarcated border left numerous gray zones in which China and the USSR both claimed sovereignty, and I'm certain still do to this day. And let me ask you a rhetorical question. Who needs land more? Russia or China? Well, I think you know the answer. After a few minor incidents, the Zhenbao Island incident drove tensions through the roof. A Soviet counterattack incurred serious casualties, as did a similar incident in Xinjiang in August. A consensus had emerged on both sides that the Chinese leadership prepared for and orchestrated the clash. Why would the Chinese provoke their much more powerful neighbor, and what if the Soviets had responded more aggressively to the Chinese provocations? In the immediate wake of the conflict, both the USSR and China prepared for war, with the Red Army redeploying to the Far East and the PLA going into full mobilization. The Soviets enjoyed an overwhelming technology advantage over China in 1969. However, Beijing had constructed the largest army in the world, much of which mustered within the reach of the Sino-Soviet border. The Red Army, by contrast, concentrated its strength in Eastern Europe, and of course, guess where the Russian army, the bulk of it, is located? Fighting a war in Ukraine, where it could prepare for a conflict with NATO. They can't fight both wars at the same time. Russia knows this. Russia had to pull the majority of its forces away from the Chinese border to deal with this Ukrainian situation. And China is just watching and waiting, and Russia knows this. And you think that Russia won't use nuclear weapons when they are getting soundly defeated by Ukraine in a conventional war? How daft can these military analysts be? Consequently, at the moment of the clash, the Chinese could plausibly claim conventional superiority along much of the border. However, China's manpower advantage didn't mean the PLA could sustain an offensive into the USSR. The Chinese lacked the logistics, the air power necessary to seize substantial amounts of Soviet territory. Moreover, the extreme long Sino-Soviet borders gave the Soviets ample opportunity for response. With a NATO attack unlikely, the Soviets could have transferred substantial forces from Europe attacking into Xinjiang and points west. The most critical avenue of potential advance lay in Manchuria, where the Red Army had launched a devastating lightning-quick offensive in the waning days of World War II. Despite its size, the PLA had no better hope of 1969 had no better hope of stopping such an offensive than the Kwantung Army had in 1945, and the loss of Manchuria would have proven devastating to China's economic power and political legitimacy. In any case, Soviet air power would have made short work of the Chinese Air Force, subjecting Chinese cities, communication centers, military bases to severe air attack. After conquering Manchuria in 1945, the Soviets looted Japanese industry and left. A similar scenario might have ensued in 1969, but only if the Chinese leadership could bring itself to face reality. With the worst excesses of the Cultural Revolution in a very recent rearview mirror and competing factions still trying to ideologically out-radicalize one another, Moscow might have struggled to find a productive partner for peace negotiations. Anyway, I want to get down to the nitty-gritty. U.S. reaction. The United States reacted to the clashes with caution, while the border conflict reassured Washington that the Chinese-Soviet split remained in effect. Officials disagreed over the likelihood and consequence of broader conflict. All right? Through various officials and non-official channels, the Soviets probed U.S. attitudes toward China. Reputedly, the United States reacted negatively to Soviet overtures in 1969 about a joint attack on Chinese nuclear facilities. What? The Soviets were asking the United States to jointly attack Chinese nuclear facilities, and you think that China and Russia are friends? Really? Even if Washington did not want to see China burn, it would not likely have engaged in any serious affirmation effort to protect Beijing from Moscow's wrath. A decade, they talk too much here. I'm just trying to get to the, whoa. what ended up happening was the United States convinced Russia not to launch nuclear weapons against China. And you can go and do your research yourself. You can see right here, Nixon saved China from Soviet nuclear attack. This article, I was going to use this article, but it tried to make me subscribe or something. Look at this. See what it does? All right, Mao Zedong moves to Wuhan, Lin Biao to Suzhou, and general staff to a nuclear bomb-proof bunker in the western hills outside Beijing. The country's warplanes are scattered around northern China. Runways at the main airport are blocked. Workers given weapons to shoot Soviet airmen when they land. It is October 1969. China is prepared for a nuclear attack by the Soviet Union. And you can read the rest, and it is apparent that Secretary of State Henry Kissinger interceded and managed to get the Soviets to rethink. And you think, you Washington think tank people, you think, you are delusional if you think that Vladimir Putin is going to let his ass get whipped by the Ukrainians. Now I think I've had enough of that. What I'm telling you is it is almost certain. Right here in the Daily Mail, NATO warns Putin may test a nuke on Ukraine's borders. As Kremlin insiders claim, he is prepared to make a decision about launching a tactical nuclear strike while hidden in a bunker, we just found out, probably in Siberia. Putin reportedly has a list of necessary Russian officials and family to save. Former President Dmitry Medvedev and love child Luisa Rozova fails to make the cut? Wow. He can't even trust his most proficient brown-noser. Just like a Russian. All right. Oh, I shouldn't be deleting these. I need to go and put links up on the video. Anyway, so back in 1969, it was too early. There wasn't enough. Enough time has not gone by. I have proved over and over and over again using Daniel 9 that a countdown of 49 years began on the Roman year 1967 on and around Shavuot. 49 years was to commence before Israel's sins as a nation are forgiven. And I did it with this chapter, Daniel 9. No, my calculation is not the calculation of the fraud Cyril, who claimed to be of Jerusalem. I used what any Jew who is a scholar in the Torah and in the prophets, in the Tanakh. So any Jew that is a scholar in the Tanakh, I dare any one of you to challenge my calculation. I dare you. here is where the calculation is concerning 70 weeks. "70 weeks are determined upon your people, upon the holy city," that's Jerusalem, "to finish the transgression." And I've told you over and over and over again that the transgression of Israel is finished. And then I've had people who are even practicing Jews tell me, but they're still living in sin, they cannot be forgiven. And then I went to scriptures and proved that they will be forgiven, and then they will have their sins turned away. They wouldn't believe me. Closet Christians. That's what I call people like that. "70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city to finish the transgression." That's not necessarily the date to destroy Rome, but to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in, it takes time to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the prophecy and to anoint the Kodesh Kodesh. That would be the most holy place. "So know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks." You see, the 62 weeks already happened. It says 62 weeks the street shall be built again and the wall in troublous times. But not after 62 and 7 weeks. It doesn't say that. It says after 62 weeks. It is from the time Nehemiah, went back to the king of Persia and announced that the street and the wall were finished. That was just the street and the wall. Because he complained to the king of Persia how the wall is messed up, torn down, and the streets are in shambles. So he begged. And the king of Persia let him do this. Then he went back to the king of Persia to announce that the wall and the street were finished. From that point until Messiah was killed was 62 weeks, 62 weeks. It was not 62 plus 7. The Christians make believe that Jerusalem was not destroyed. They pretend as if this 1 week did not occur. And they're pretending as if it is yet to occur. When clearly Vespasian sent his son, Vespasian the emperor, sent his son, the prince of Rome, to destroy Jerusalem. But Titus made a pact, forced his men, his generals, to make a pact that they were going to besiege the city for 7 years, 1 week. But those of us who study history know that in the middle of that week, because the Jews were hitting the Romans hard from inside. Titus lost control of his men. He was going to take the temple to the Pantheon in Rome, where all the other temples of all of the other nations were taken to. That was the plan. But they burned the temple to the ground, and not one stone was left on top of the other. You cannot convince a single Christian that Daniel 9 verse 27 is in reference to that episode, to that event. You cannot convince a single Christian, because if you did, they could no longer be a Christian. And some of you Jews, if you're not careful, you're a closet Christian, some of you, by believing Cyril's false narrative. Now, so what about this 7 weeks here? When Yehoshua first came, he was a suffering servant, not a prince. He didn't receive all power, not yet. "7 weeks unto Messiah the Prince from the call to rebuild Jerusalem. Now the street and the wall would be built in troublous times, and after 60 weeks Messiah would be cut off." So the 7 weeks had not occurred. It did not occur until Shlomo Goren '67 war. Oh no, come on now. There we go, right here. Way down here, and I have repeated this probably 100 times over the course of my videos, and I'll repeat it again, because this time, all my Jewish mishpacha, this should have some meaning to you very shortly. He said, "Leshana hazat beYerushalayim, habnuya beYerushalayim ha-atika." Translation: this year in a rebuilt Jerusalem as the Jerusalem of old. That was the call to rebuild Jerusalem, not the street and the wall as Nehemiah did. And the countdown began on the Roman calendar, June 7, 1967. And it ended right around Shavuot, 2016 on the Roman calendar. And as I have pointed out many times, the narrative that you Christians, and I'm about to turn my face away from you Christians, I have had enough of warning you. I've had enough of it. Because you won't listen. You just won't listen. So, what was it? Was it 2020? I vaguely remember talking about when the what what was that called? The Abraham Accords was signed. So effective since September 15th, 2020. Just 2 years ago. The event occurred that you Christians claim is the event of the Antichrist, as you say. And my, oh my, oh my, how silent you were. Paul said, he did not say when Israel and the Arabs shall say peace and safety. It's not what he said. He didn't say that. He just said when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them as a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. But my, oh my, oh my. And I have pointed out many times, not only was that a declaration of peace and safety, but the World Economic Forum had been declaring peace and safety. I pointed that out to you, and even the Russians, NATO, everybody has been talking about peace and safety. But who is this destruction going to come upon? It's not going to come upon Israel. Why? Because the sin of Israel has expired, and I have proven it over and over and over again. It is expired. A certain amount of time had to go by. It is expired. It expired. Six years ago. 6 years ago. Should I go to Isaiah first? This is going to be a long one, folks. This video is going to be very long. The promise of restoration of Israel by the prophet Jeremiah. The word that came to Jeremiah from, not the Lord, Jehovah, that is his name. Do not disrespect his name with calling him the Lord. Jehovah said, Jehovah, Elohim of Israel says, write these words that I have spoken unto you in the book, because the days come, says Jehovah, that I will bring back the captivity of not just the Jews, but of the lost 10 tribes of Israel, says Jehovah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave unto their Abba, to their Ab, and they shall possess it. The word Jehovah spoke concerning Israel and concerning Yehuda. The two have not become one yet. The two are going to become one once their head shows up. This says Jehovah, we heard a voice of trembling and fear and not of peace. For 2,000 years it's been this way. Why does every man travail with child? Why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in travail? All faces are turned to paleness. He's describing the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD on the Roman calendar. Alas, for that day is great, the time of Jacob's trouble. but he will be saved out of it. The time of Jacob's trouble was officially over 6 years ago. The time of Israel's sin was over 6 years ago. Now it is the time to gather all Israel back home. How will it be done? The day will come, says Jehovah of hosts, that I will break that yoke from off your neck, and I will burst your bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves on him. But they will serve Jehovah Elohim, and Ben David their king, who I will raise up to them. Fear not, my servant Yaakov, says Jehovah, neither be dismayed. So I'm telling you, I'm just repeating to you the words of Jehovah to all my Jewish mishpacha today, on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur. Do not be dismayed at what you are about to see. Do not allow fear and dread to take you. This is a time of your redemption, as promised thousands of years ago. O Israel, for lo, I will save you from afar. And the vast majority of Israel today is in the United States of America. And please do not misconstrue my words, and do not confuse my words as to the words of, what is his name? I can't even remember what this guy's name is anymore. Even he, David-y. All I can remember is David-y. He's on YouTube. Even he does not say the majority of, he says it's a minority of people in the United States. Indeed, he's correct, but do not mistake my words for his words, or even for the British Israelism movement in England, or even the Armstrong crowd in the United States. No, it's not like that. I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of captivity. So, let's see, Yaakov. Interesting. That's a new way of saying it. Shall return, and shall be in rest, and shall be in quiet, and none shall make him afraid. So I'm telling you, Jews, and all Zionists, do not be afraid. This is going to be your turn. Okay? For I am with you, says Jehovah, to save you. And complete and utter destruction of the Gentiles where I have scattered you. That's right. And I hope those of you who are watching this video right now watch the one that I just did yesterday. To discipline and judgment, to be empty and clean. Do not read the words of the King James Version as it says, because it is false. He is saying right here, he doesn't say, but I will correct you in measure and not leave you altogether. That's not what it says. This is all about, he is going to make a full end of the Gentiles where I have scattered you, and make a full end, and make it in judgment, and they will be empty and clean. So what I'm telling you, everyone, today, when the call comes to go to Israel, and you're going to ask, how in the world is that going to happen? All of these millions of people, at least 12 million Jews here in the United States alone. There's not enough land. Spread out the tent pegs, it is written. Israel will be instantaneously given more land. And the Gentiles think they're going to stay here. They're not. They're not going to stay in these faraway lands. They have to come as well for judgment. And those who don't will die. The lands are going to be emptied and cleaned out. And much of the land around the world will not be habitable for 1,000 years. I'm just telling you. Okay. Verse 18. Jehovah says, I will bring back the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places, and the holy city Jerusalem shall be built on Mount Zion, and the palace shall dwell in judgment. So the palace is going to be the place where Jehovah judges the world. And there shall come out thanksgiving and the voice of them that makes merry. And I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will glorify them. Make them great, achieving honor. They will become fierce. They will be glorious. So indeed the translation is correct here. He will glorify them, and they shall not be small. The children shall be aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me. And I will punish all of their oppressors. Okay? Their majesty and dominion shall proceed from the midst of them. Okay? You will be my people, and he will be their Elohim. And the fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he has done it, until he has performed the intention of his heart in the last days. In the last days. In the after part. And I cannot do this without 31. The New Covenant chapter. The New Covenant for Israel chapter. At that time, Jehovah will be Elohim of all the tribes of Israel. Not with the exception of Dan, but all of them, including Dan. And they will be his people. Jehovah says the people were left of the sword, found grace in the wilderness, Israel. He went to cause him to rest. He's spoken these things of old about his love. Just like in the book of Hosea. With an everlasting love. With favor. And he will drag you out of those lands. Okay? The vines will be planted yet again in the mountains of Samaria. That means the fake Stinians are going to have to be kicked out. The planters shall plant and eat them without being stolen by the Gentiles. Thus says Jehovah, Sing with gladness, Jacob, and shout among the chief of the Gentiles. And yes, the two witnesses are going to go to Tarshish first, the Atlantic, to gather all Israel back home. The chief of the nations, the chief of the Gentile nations. Publish, shine, say, Jehovah, save your people, the remnant of Israel. Who's going to do this? This act will be performed by the two witnesses with the power of Moshe and Eliah. I will bring them from the north and gather them from the coastlands of the sea, of the Mediterranean Sea. It says the earth, but it says the coasts. Okay? Oh, wait a minute. The extreme parts of the earth. The extreme parts. Well, that's more than Mediterranean Sea. That would be the Americas. And with them the blind and the lame, and the woman with child, and her that travails with child together, a great company shall return there. And some of you continue to say, a small company. This is the new covenant chapter, folks. They shall come with weeping and supplication, and I will lead them and cause them to walk by the rivers of the waters in the straight way, wherein they will not stumble. For I am Abba. Jehovah is the Abba of Israel. And Ephraim, the firstborn of when he sat him on his knee, when Jacob sat him on his knee. Hear the word of Jehovah, you Gentiles, and declare it to the coastlands. That would be the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea. He that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock. For Jehovah has redeemed Jacob. This is what this day represents. The Day of Atonement. Yom Kippur. The Day of Redemption. And ransomed him from the hand that was stronger than he. From Western civilization, from Rome. Therefore they will come and sing at the height of Zion. The 144,000 and the innumerable multitude are Israel and those who are grafted in the branches of Israel. And they will be together. And they will come singing at the height of Zion, and they will stream. A stream of people, a river of people, for the goodness of Jehovah, for wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young flock and the herd, and their soul will be like a watered garden, and they will never sorrow ever again. It's over. Israel, your sins are forgiven. Your time of trouble is over. I can say that with 100% certainty. Where are your rabbis telling you this? Are any of them telling you this? I'm just repeating what the prophets say and taking a look around, and you can see that the end of the Gentiles is here. How about you Christian preachers? Do they tell you about this? No. Talks about how Ephraim, which is a representative of the 10 tribes of Israel, is his dear son. He's not going to forever forget about Ephraim, even though, as in Hosea, it is written that Ephraim had mixed himself by blood with the Gentiles. He's going to gather them back anyway and forgive all their sins. Now, behold, the day comes, says Jehovah, I will make a new covenant. This is what this YouTube channel has been all about. A new covenant with the house of Israel. That's Ephraim, the 10 tribes, and the house of Yehudah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their Abbas in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, because they broke that covenant when I was a husband unto them, says Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah in the after part. The after part began 6 years ago, and nobody saw it. And we're about to witness the redemption and the salvation of Israel. We're about to witness the greatest migration to ever happen since there was a man on the earth. Says Jehovah, I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their heart. Will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall no longer teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, know Jehovah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Jehovah. From the least to the greatest, they will all. While the Christians are chafing and calling the Jews children of the devil, Jehovah is going to save every one of them. He's going to pour out his Ruach Kodesh upon them, and they will believe, and they will turn toward righteousness. That is a guarantee. For I will forgive their iniquity and will remember their sin no more. All right? I need to go ahead and we'll just go to Isaiah 60 because I think there was enough territory covered in Jeremiah 30 and 31. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of Jehovah is risen upon you, Mount Zion. Because darkness covers the earth, and gross darkness the people, the Gentiles. But Jehovah shall rise upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you. And the Gentiles, as I told you, they're going to be forced to also come. And they will be bringing the people of Israel with them. Isaiah 14, Isaiah 66, Revelation 11 shows you exactly how it's going to be done. And kings of the brightness of your rising. Look all around you. They're all gathering themselves together. They're coming to you. Your sons are coming from afar, and your daughters will be nursed. And they will flow together. Or you will flow together, and your heart shall fear, and your tents shall be enlarged. How else are you going to house all these people? And why? How are they going to be enlarged? Because the murmuring, the haters, the Jew haters that are in the Mediterranean Sea, Rome, shall be not converted. O King James Version, you liar, you. but will be overthrown. Overthrown. The Christian nations of the Mediterranean Sea, and the Muslim ones too, shall be overthrown. And or when the forces of the Gentiles come in, invade. Ezekiel 38:39. Multitudes of camels will cover you, the dromedaries of Midian Ephah, and all of those from Sheba shall come. Told you. What are they going to be doing? Well, they're going to be bringing gold and incense, and they will show forth praises of Jehovah. The flocks of Qatar will also gather unto you, and the rams of Nebaioth shall be your ministers. And because they're bringing, okay, so you have the rich Arabs bringing all their gold as an offering. That offering will be accepted. And as I understand it, then no more plagues. I'm not talking about Egypt. I'm talking about, you can see right here what it's talking about. There won't be any more plagues upon them, apparently, because their gold and incense is going to be received and accepted. Okay? Now, flying, not brandishing, but flying, to fly in the clouds, not as a cloud, but in the clouds, as doves to their windows. The coastlands will wait, and the ships of Tarshish will come first. The ships of Tarshish, the ships of the Atlantic. The vast majority of Israel live in the Atlantic. They're coming first. Those lands will be first to comply, along with the other the Semitic tribes that we just mentioned, you just read about. Okay? To bring your sons from afar and their silver and gold with them from those locations to Shem Yehovah, or to Yehovah, hold on, to Shem Yehovah Elohim, to the Kadosh of Israel, for beautification and glorification. The sons of strangers shall build your walls, and the kings shall be your servants. In my wrath I smote you, but now I am showing favor upon you, and I will have mercy upon you. Your gates will be open continually, and they shall not be shut day nor night, so that men may bring you the wealth of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought for judgment. No, if Vladimir Putin lives long enough in that bunker, he's going to be dragged out of there, and he's going to be brought to justice as well in Jerusalem. For the Goy, the Gentiles, and the kingdom that will not serve Jerusalem shall perish. Those nations, those Gentiles, those Goy shall be utterly wasted. The sons of those who afflicted you, the sons of the Romans, the sons of the Christians, the sons of the Crusaders, the cross carriers, the Catholics, the Orthodox, the Coptics, I think I said the Coptics already, shall come bow before you, and those who despise you shall bow themselves down at the soles of your feet, and they will call Jerusalem the city of Jehovah, Zion, the Kadosh of Israel. You were forsaken and hated, so that no man went through you. But Jerusalem will become an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Jerusalem will suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shall suck the breasts of kings. And you, Israel, shall know Jehovah am your Savior, your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Okay? It will not need sunlight by day. Neither for brightness shall the moon be needed to give you light, because Jehovah will be your everlasting light, and Elohim your glory. Your people shall all be righteous, in spite of what the Christians say. And they will inherit the land forever, and the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that will be glorified. And a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. And I, Jehovah, will make this happen quickly. Deuteronomy 30. After the blessings and the cursings are finished. I announce today to all Israel that the cursings in Deuteronomy 30 are finished. I have this chapter rolled up in my mezuzah. That's what I have in my mezuzah. This chapter. Let's read it together. It shall come to pass that after all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you, you shall remember them among the Gentiles, where Jehovah had driven you. And you will return unto Jehovah Elohim, and you will obey his voice according to all I have commanded you this day, you and your children, and all of your heart with all of your soul. Jehovah Elohim will return your captivity. Not then. Doesn't say then. It says Jehovah Elohim will return your captivity, and he will have compassion upon you, and he will return and gather you from the Gentiles, where Jehovah Elohim has scattered you. And if any of you be driven into the utmost parts of the horizon, not the heavens, but horizon, horizon right here. And they were indeed scattered into the utmost parts of the horizon, all the way on the other side of the earth, in the Americas. From there will Jehovah Elohim fetch you and gather you. Jehovah Elohim will bring you into the land which your Abs possessed, and you will possess it, and he will do you good and multiply you like your Abs, or above your Abs. And Jehovah Elohim will do something that has never been done before. Circumcise Israel's heart and the heart of their seed to love Jehovah Elohim with all your heart, with all of their soul, so that you may live. And Jehovah Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies, upon those that hated you, which persecuted you. You Christians, you know what you did. You know what your forefathers did. It's coming for you. And it's coming for you Muslims too. And for any group of people who had a history of persecuting the Jews. It's coming for you. You will return and obey the voice of Jehovah to do his commandments, which I command you this day. And Jehovah Elohim will make you plenteous in every work of your hand, and the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your cattle, and the fruit of your land for good. For Jehovah will again rejoice over you for good, just like he rejoiced over your Abba. Not if you will hearken, doesn't say that. It says, and you will listen to the voice of Jehovah Elohim to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of this Torah. And not if you will return unto Jehovah Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul. That's a guarantee. So get ready. Get ready. my Jewish mishpacha. Get ready. Be strong of heart. Do not be afraid. And this is when it's going to happen, folks. Wait a minute. Oh. Okay. What I wanted to point out was in verse 18, Zechariah 8, the word of Jehovah of hosts came to me saying, the fast of the 4th month and the fast of the 5th month and the fast of, the 5th month